Welcome to the
Okay.
open session of the North Andover School Committee of August 20th. It is now 7:26 p.m. We called the meeting to order earlier and we went into executive session, so we are resuming the meeting. And I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you can all stand.
To the flag of the United
Of the United States of
America,
America
and to
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Want me to log in off of here?
And there's Darth Vader.
Where's the remote? Is it muted?
No.
Thank you.
We should
No, we can't hear.
Still
We can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
No.
I will vamp, la la la. You could hear
We
me
never heard her doing
before,
this
but you
earlier.
can't hear me
No,
now.
that's true.
I am
do it
singing
off
to
of here?
you. I am singing, singing.
Oh, yes!
And you'll let me know when
Yeah.
you can hear me. Oh, you're here. I just went straight into song.
Excellent.
Well, I think that was live, Helen. We just couldn't hear you, but the folks at home, I think, could. So.
Well, I'm glad I was singing nice words.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we start, and I've got an echo from you all, and I'll just deal with that as best I can. I'm not sure why that's happening, but our good folks from North Andover CAM, who we always have to thank, will help me out with that. So before we go into the session, I just want to read that this open meeting of the North Andover School Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as a reasonable public access is afforded, and so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will include public comment received via email as posted on the agenda. For this meeting, the North Andover School Committee is conveying by video conference as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. I would ask everybody at this time to please silence their devices if they have them, and if you're joining remotely, to please mute unless you've been recognized by the chair. Did I say this meeting is being recorded?
Yes.
It is. So we'll be turning to the first agenda item, but before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call. That's our starting stuff. And our first order of business is public comment. So we received 17 public comments this week. And they are, I will present them to you primarily in chronological order, with the first one received read first. There's a couple that are out of order, and I did group a few of the comments together because I think that would be helpful to the community. And I will be reading only highlights from most letters.
Chair Picard?
I'm sorry?
Sorry, Chair, do you need to identify who's present at the meeting?
Yes, I do. Thank you for reminding me of that. So I will do a roll call of the members, and then I will call on Dr. Gilligan to do a roll call of the administration who's present with us. Mr. Teresi,
Aye, here.
Ms. Mabley,
Here.
Mr. McDevitt,
Here.
and Ms. Vitsky Lynch,
Here.
and I myself, Ms. Picard, is here, and Dr. Gilligan.
Usually not. Yes, we have on the call Town Council Suzanne Egan.
Good evening.
We have the Director of Public Health for the town of North Andover, Ryan LaGrasse.
Thank you, I'm here.
We have the Nurse Administrator for Health Services for the North Andover Public Schools, Cheryl Bazak.
I'm here.
Okay, and did I miss anyone up there?
Caroline?
Okay.
Oh, Caroline Ibbotson from the town, town nurse from the Public Health Department. Thank you.
Here, thank you.
And Dr. Gilligan, it helps me a great deal if you speak into your microphone and make him, if you can turn him up, that would also help me. I've got my volume here turned up to maximum right now. So I have the 17 public comments, and the first one is from Diane Sacheri at 15 Royal Crest Drive in North Andover. And she states, I have serious issues with both the middle school and high school going full days. Without teaching online on the days they are not allowed in school, my experience was my middle schooler, and she didn't do anything till the last minute. I really don't want to repeat. Additionally, I have great concerns with high schoolers and mask wearing. From what I've seen around town this summer, most youth aren't wearing masks. The next two public comments are from Allison Del Paggio of 23 Forest Street and Leah Manzi Collar at 85 Lancaster Road, and they have similar questions. Allison's letter reads, I'm wondering if the current proposed and approved hybrid model you all, as well as the parents, are tirelessly working to plan has been approved by the teachers union. Do we know if the teachers will be coming back? I'm curious if they have approved by the teachers or how the town plans to handle working this out with them. I appreciate the work everyone is putting in, administration, committee, and teachers, but I feel it's important that we as parents are aware if this plan isn't being approved by the teachers and the town's next steps to do so. And similarly, Leah says, as a parent and as a family that has accepted and is planning for hybrid first half of the school year, we need to know this is something that will not be altered due to the teachers union pushing something different, especially if the hybrid proposal was approved by DESE. And I feel that it's appropriate to say, as the chair, that the North Andover School Committee is in negotiations with the North Andover Teachers Association, and we are making progress. And there is nothing on the agenda tonight. We do not anticipate anything on the agenda for us to reconsider the decision that we made, which is a management decision to begin hybrid. The fourth public comment I have is from Suzanne Nobley, 317 Hillside Road. This one's a little bit lengthy, but she starts, the board thought it was important enough to add an amendment for input, but did not define how the input would be handled. Please provide a forum where people can get all questions answered. Presentations alone generate more and more questions that are not answered. It continues to be a one-way communication with a one-and-done approach rather than a continuous weekly updates with opportunity to get our questions answered in a timely manner. The special ed department is holding a community chat for this purpose. Why can't the rest of the student population benefit from the same level of communication? And then she has 4 points. One, when is the school committee going to publicly post the expected Q&A that walks through all scenarios with answers that parents have been asking in these meetings and posting on Facebook? 2, if one student tests positive in the high school, which are the additional cohort groups that will need to quarantine? She has a list of groups, class cohorts, teachers, siblings, teachers who do PD together, the teachers' kids and the kids' cohorts in their schools, other teachers' classes, sibling cohorts, sibling teachers, sports activities, and clubs. Number 3, if the teachers are exposed, do we have enough teachers to continue teaching all the classes at North Andover Public Schools? And number 4, if a student in the hybrid cohort gets sick, how will they continue to be taught if they can no longer attend their 2 days in school? Thank you, Suzanne. The 5th one is from Julie Ross at 104 Bridges Lane. My question is regarding the difference between OLA and the hybrid remote learning day on Wednesday. My understanding is that both OLA and the hybrid remote day will use the North Andover curriculum and the North Andover teachers. They will also use the same system, for example, Google Meets, to deliver instruction and hold the classes. If the answer is yes, is there any real difference in terms of the student's experience between OLA day and the Wednesday hybrid remote learning day? The reason why I'm asking is that if for whatever reason we end up doing fully remote versus hybrid, we would have 2 identical parallel systems operating. Seems like not the most efficient way to do things. Thank you for that. The 6th public comment is from Jen Goldman at 28 Jared Place, and she states, with North Andover's positive COVID case rate above the recommended amount of 1% and the teachers wanting a remote start, I'd like the North Andover School Committee and the North Andover Public Schools to change the fall plan to a remote start for all students and a phasing approach starting 2nd semester. Students need daily live learning. Parents and teachers need to plan childcare, remote school setup at home and in facilities and work. This plan will allow everyone to make the proper arrangements and be ready to start school with engaging learning and a dependable schedule for all students and teachers. I would also like written confirmation that Mike Grant's IT team tested live streaming and has proven it will work or is buying the equipment to make it work. Jim Mealy's team obtained an outside HVAC assessment green-lighting our systems, and Lorraine Marks and Karen have publicly shared the daily learning schedule for OLA students. Thank you for your consideration, time, and relentless efforts on behalf of our students and teachers. And I think I said at the beginning that was Jen Goldman, 28 Jared Place. The next comment is from Tom Duggan, 48 Beacon Hill Boulevard. He has 2 questions. 1, in the face coverings policy, why are teachers required to provide their own personal protective equipment? We do not have the same requirement for police, fire, and other departments in town. Can you explain the background for this decision? Is it a funding issue, collective bargaining issue? I believe that from a consistency standpoint, having one vendor would ensure that our teachers have appropriate and consistent protection across all of our schools and programs. In the final policy, please provide our teachers and staff with face coverings, shields, and other personal protective equipment at no cost to them. And number 2, regarding the policy as it applies to students, can you append the CDC guidelines to the document and/or provide pictures of appropriate masks? Given there have been a number of conflicting media reports about the effectiveness of masks, fabrics, fit, type, I believe additional guidance for parents on the appropriate types is warranted and would be helpful. The next 10 are all in support of the hybrid model. And with the permission of the committee, or with the support of the committee, I'd like to read the names and the connection to the schools and the addresses of the folks who made comments. And I may provide a little bit of information. They all provide backup about why they think it's best that we not reconsider the hybrid model at this point. As I said earlier, that's not on the agenda to reconsider it, and there has been no indication that this committee is interested in reconsidering the start of school in the hybrid model at this point. So I just want to check in with the committee members. Is it okay if I read the names and addresses and a little bit of information from these letters rather than reading them all individually? I feel like that would take a tremendous amount of time.
Ms. Picard?
Yes.
I would prefer that if you read them all. I felt, I heard a couple things earlier, I thought, that one comment had a big inaccuracy in it, so I think it's important we hear, especially there's 10 people that feel we're doing the right thing. I like to hear them all.
Okay, I will be happy to read them all. So the first one is from, and these are in order of receipt on the subject. So only one or two of them is out of order from the prior ones that were all in different subjects. So this is from Matt Collar, 85 Lancaster Road. He says, my question for the committee is how likely will it be for North Andover Public, especially the elementary, since that is where my incoming first and third graders will be, goes fully remote and phases into hybrid? The talk now is that unions, specifically in North Andover, are pushing for fully remote to start the year, yet the committee voted on hybrid, and that is what the parents now have been working off to make work decisions, additional childcare decisions, etc. Structures such as schools, athletics, and extracurricular activities provide opportunities for our kids to excel. When I hear things like, it's not worth the risk, and not only until it's safe, from the unions and teachers, I understand the concern, but I also think to myself, we have flattened the curve. We have introduced masks and social distancing to our children, and we are willing to enforce this heading into the school buildings, and our COVID cases are in the green per the governor. I come from a sports background. As many of you probably know, there are ambulances at high school sports in case of emergencies. But as a parent, we determine based on the risk-benefit awards ratio to determine if our kids can play football, ice hockey, etc. The choice is ours and should be ours. There is an inherent risk when playing physical sports. Now, I don't see that this is any different while deciding whether or not our kids can go to school. If we are forced to leave this decision up to the teachers union, we have a much bigger issue in society than COVID-19. The second comment is from Kevin Driscoll, 86 Kingston Street in North Andover. January 2021, the height of flu season, the 1-year mark of the first official cases of COVID in the United States, and we somehow believe we will be ready to return to schools, offices, etc. We have spent the past 3 glorious months outdoors. We have had sporting events. NAYRS ran a very successful summer fun camp for over 850 town youth. We are entertained by summer concerts on the common. We've gone to the beaches. We have taken some vacations, and we have seen the numbers here in town remain relatively safe and low. We have an opportunity to try to return our kids to the semblance of normalcy in schools, even if only lasts a few weeks and we are forced back into remote learning situations. The fact is, January 2021 is an arbitrary date companies and governments are picking because it's far enough to select a placeholder and buy time. The reality is we will likely be in worse shape in January than we are on September 15th. Please stick to your plans and get the kids into classrooms. North Andover citizens overwhelmingly selected hybrid by not selecting OLA. Less than a third selected OLA. So I am beyond frustration that we can continue to operate on fear and not caution. There is a difference. Thanks for your service to the community. I'm trying to start with the name and address. I feel like that makes more sense when we're reading a letter. But if I forget to do that, I hope somebody from the committee will shout out to me because it's usually at the bottom. So we have Carrie. I'm sorry, did I not read that one?
You did. You're all set.
So I have Carrie and Dan Leary of 26 Andover Street. As parents of children in 3 North Andover schools, we encourage you to move forward with a recommended hybrid learning model based on science and statistics. According to the state DPH and COVID average daily incidence rate per 100,000 in the last 14 days for North Andover is 1.9. Putting the town in the green category, for which DESE recommends schools to open in full or at minimum in a hybrid manner. While case counts are still low in town, this is the time to open the schools and allow students and teachers to establish relationships, expectations, and plans for the year. If and when COVID case counts increase locally and it becomes unsafe per state guidelines, the schools would then much more successfully switch to a fully remote learning model. The school department has recommended a plan that safety allows students to return to the school classrooms in a modified capacity. Children need to be in school for their social, emotional, and academic well-being. We can teach a kindergartner to read at home, but we cannot teach the skills, social skills learned in a classroom with peers. We encourage you to support the school department's recommended hybrid solution and allow the children of North Andover to go to school. The next letter is from, the next letter is from Alex and Jamie Marshall, 178 Old Cart Way. I'm writing on behalf of my Franklin Elementary School children, Garrett, who will be in 3rd grade, and Zella, who will be in 2nd grade, as well as other friends who don't have time to reach out to you. My family is 100% supportive of 100% in-person school to begin the school year. However, we know the hybrid model has been approved, therefore we are 100% in support of that. My elementary children must be in the classroom. The teachers, when remote this past spring, were not successful in teaching my children what they needed in order to further their knowledge. We understand the position teachers are in, but they are essential employees, and their jobs, like many during this pandemic, are positions that must be in person. Parents, as much as we try, don't have the knowledge of the teachers to even assist in the daily work that is provided. The state of Massachusetts, but more importantly, the town of North Andover, is in a very good position at the moment as it relates to COVID cases. I can respect the position to go fully remote if COVID cases start to increase in Massachusetts, but more specifically in North Andover. However, that is not the case at the moment. We as a community and the teachers as the leaders of our children need to push in-person schooling. These kids need to establish relationships with their teachers and classmates, and if we are forced to go fully remote. Other essential employees in other industries who chose not to continue to work during the pandemic have been let go and jobs replaced. Our school system should not be any different. The essential position of our teachers is not a job that can be done at home, AKA virtually, and that was proven this past spring. Until there is a true risk our children should be attending school in person, we fully support the majority decision 4-1 for the hybrid learning starting this fall. Thank you for taking the time to read this and to share if necessary. Thank you in advance. This is from Elizabeth Palladino, 47 Penny Lane. I am writing this email to implore you to remain consistent in the decision to start with the hybrid model. While I understand this has been an incredibly difficult time for everyone, I can't imagine another year with remote learning. My children's mental health and academic progress has been greatly impacted. I worry if we don't start in the fall while cases counts are incredibly low and the children can be outside, we will never go back. The hybrid model, along with the option for the OLA Academy, provides choices to North Andover families to do what is right for them. I do appreciate the teachers' anxiety, but many different professions have had to adapt and adjust to this pandemic. Excuse me a moment. Can you please close the kitchen door? That didn't happen. I'm going to mute myself for a moment.
It's hard.
It is. It is.
Cleaning up.
My apologies. There's somebody cleaning in my kitchen. That's not a bad thing. Many different professionals have had to adapt and adjust to this pandemic. I believe schools can do this also. Children were incredibly resilient and adaptable during summer fun. They are more capable than we give them credit for. I have Erin Riccio, R-I-C-C-I-O, 275 Dale Street in North Andover. Erin writes, my name is Erin and I have 2 boys at the Franklin School. I'm writing to you upon hearing of the North Andover Teachers Association presenting their case to begin the year remotely. I am sure there are many arguments to support full remote learning. However, I believe that while the number of cases is low, now would be the best time and possibly the only time to get children into schools to meet their teachers and form a foundation for learning. If the cases increase and the children have to switch to full remote learning, at least they will have a relationship to work from. There is no perfect answer that will accommodate everyone or make everyone happy, but I really believe this is the opportunity to start the school year strong and hopefully continue as long as possible. This next letter is from Maureen McLean. And she lists the letters MS and CCC-SLP after her name. And she is at 30J Road in North Andover. This one's a little bit lengthy. I'm writing to urge you to stay committed to your decision to start the school year in person for North Andover students. Those first weeks, months, or whatever length of time we have in person will provide an invaluable factor contributing to the success of any remote learning, implementing that it may come as a result of a spike in case numbers. As a speech language pathologist for over 16 years with experience in the school setting, I know firsthand how important it is for teachers to become acquainted with their students and to learn their personalities and unique learning needs. The observations that occur within the first few weeks in the classroom provide teachers with the information necessary to differentiate their instruction, to reach each child, every one of their students. When a teacher gives a direction to a task, he or she quickly scans the classroom to check for students' comprehension. When a teacher sees a puzzled look or a student that is slow to initiate the task, they recognize this is likely due to lack of comprehension. The teacher may, therefore, restate or reword the instruction, perhaps adding an example to further ensure comprehension. For those students that are still not ready to begin, the teacher or teaching assistant might go over and work one-on-one or in a small group to get that student started on the task and gradually release them to independence. These small in-person encounters with students provide teachers with the knowledge necessary to be able to reach all students with their instruction. In the remote learning environment, curricular materials and instruction is often presented in a written format or pre-recorded video. Information and instructions are stated one time and in one specific way. If a student does not comprehend the information, that they are left with few tools to move forward with their work. In a remote setting, it is up to the student to advocate for themselves, identifying when they do not fully comprehend a lesson or instruction, and asking the right questions to gain assistance. With an in-person start, teachers will learn quickly that students that may need to check in with more frequently, rephrase, or jumpstart their learning with a small group or one-on-one assistance. With this knowledge in hand, they will be better equipped to teach to their entire class if forced to go remote. This is only one example of the academic-related reasons to push for an in-person start, not to mention the social emotional growth and benefits that will be provided when children attend school in person. The public school system has always followed the model of moving from a least restrictive learning environment to a most restrictive learning environment as necessary, and I do not see why it would deviate from that trend now. With proper health and safety precautions, for example, masks, small cohorts, and social distancing, and vigilant monitoring of student and staff for symptoms, I do not see why North Andover would not have a successful in-person start to the 2020-2021 school year. These protocols would minimize, if not mitigate, the risk to students and staff. Right now is the time to get these children into school. Our case numbers are low. Our governor has deemed North Andover a low-risk community and has stated that he sees no reason why our community should not begin the school year in person. What are we waiting for? If it does not happen now, then can we realistically assume that our students will not be afforded the opportunity to learn in person for the entire year? Waiting until we get closer to winter when COVID-19 cases become confounded with regular colds, flu, and other illnesses makes absolutely zero sense. Not until it's safe. Right now is the safest time we will have. This is a letter from Dr. Lisa Fitzgibbons at 208 Carlton Lane. I am writing as a concerned parent of North Andover High School students and as a healthcare provider. My son graduated from North Andover High School and my daughter is starting her sophomore year. As a parent, I am extremely disappointed to see the letter endorsed by the teachers union calling for phased-in reopening. Our children have been without basic educational instruction for the past 5 months and are suffering both academically and emotionally. I've also been a pediatrician in the local community for over 20 years. I have continued caring for children in person during the pandemic because that is what is in the best interest of our kids. I have witnessed daily the incredible toll remote learning and social isolation is taking on children and adolescents. The pediatric community has seen a dramatic rise in anxiety, depression, suicidality, and substance abuse since March, which has been largely attributed to the loss of in-person learning, socialization, and daily routine. While I understand some teachers are concerned about returning to in-person learning, there is absolutely no evidence to suggest that the remote learning in the town of North Andover is the better option. The hybrid model that has been approved limits class size to 50%, which allows for 6 foot of social distance recommended by the CDC. Children and faculty will also be wearing masks and frequently sanitizing their hands, in addition to the supplemental PPE supplied by the state and many other precautions that will be in place to ensure their safety. In addition, only 12% of parents have opted out of the hybrid model and will be sending their children to school. Governor Charlie Baker, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics all support in-person learning in towns that are below 5% infection rates. North Andover has remained well below 5%. The CDC and the AAP both discussed the lower infection rate in children and the fact that, if infected, they are unlikely to suffer from severe symptoms. However, the CDC states, quote, "The harms attributed to closed schools on the social, emotional, behavioral health, economic well-being, and academic achievement of children in both the short term and long term are well known and significant," end quote. The town of North Andover and the teachers and parents should be guided by the data and the guidance of the medical experts, not by fear of the teachers' union. There has been ample time to prepare for a safe return to school, and our students are mentally prepared for the upcoming school year. Our children need to return to school with some in-person instruction no later than September 16th, 2020. We cannot delay them any longer. Thank you for your consideration. I believe there are 2 more letters. So this is from Lauren Taylor, 110 Blue Ridge Road in North Andover. She says, "Good afternoon. I'm writing to ask the North Andover's Teachers Association to please help our children get back into school in September. After many months of consideration, the district recommended a hybrid approach with 2 days in school and 3 days remote. I am confident the district has made that recommendation based on its view that in-person learning is best. As a parent of an incoming 3rd grader, I think that establishing teacher-student relationship in person and having classes in person twice a week is fundamental to making the virtual component successful. I understand many teachers are concerned about going back to in-person classes, but North Andover's COVID cases are very low, 10 cases reported in the last 14 days, and I'm optimistic that the district's measures to keep our students, teachers, and staff safe, i.e. reduced class sizes, masks, etc., will be successful. Thank you. Franklin School Parent." And this is from Caitlin Duffy. I'm sure she, here it is. Sorry, it's 136 Carlton Lane. Sometimes we go back and forth a little bit to make sure that we have all the components that they need, that it's actually for public comment, that they have their address and all that jazz. So sometimes it's hidden within the body of the work. So Caitlin Duffy says, "As parents to 3 young children attending North Andover Public Schools, I would strongly encourage you to stick with your convictions. Our children, especially those under the age of 12, need to be in school. They need direct instruction from their teachers and in-person interactions with peers. They need the structure of an in-school learning. They need stability and routine in person. Learning is necessary, and the current plan for the hybrid model allows for this. The American Academy of Pediatrics is urging school systems to allow for in-person learning. Dr. Fauci and the NIAID say that students should return to school if levels of COVID activity are low. Additionally, WHO recommends that no more than 2 hours of screen time per day for children ages 6 through 12. Please listen to the medical professionals and stick with your plan to provide in-person learning for our children in September. We are all dependent on your decision making, and we appreciate your thoughts in this and care. No need to respond. Looking forward to tuning into the meeting." So that is all our public comment for tonight. Thank you all of you who take the time to write in. I do anticipate that your questions will be answered throughout this evening, or many questions are on the website and will be upcoming. So thank you all for that. Our next agenda item was withdrawn. The North Andover Teachers Association rescinded their public statement. So we'll be moving to our next item, which is the consent agenda and the approval of minutes. So I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented in the packet or as attached to the agenda.
So moved?
Second?
So I believe that I heard Ms. Mably move.
Correct.
And Ms. Lynch second.
Sure.
And so we'll do a roll call vote, beginning with Mr. Teresi.
Aye.
And Ms. Mably,
Aye.
Mr. McDevitt,
Aye.
and Ms. Vitsky Lynch.
Yes.
And our next agenda item.
What about
Oh,
you?
sorry, the chair votes yes, and so that's 5-0 in favor of the motion to approve the minutes as presented in the packet. Thank you. And we're on to our next agenda item, which is the superintendent's report. Dr. Gilligan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First up tonight is Dr. Mealy under the superintendent's report with an update on HVAC.
So I think we've mentioned at a previous meeting that we have contracted with TRC out of Woburn. They are an environmental engineering firm, and they are conducting a test of our systems, an analysis and evaluation of our systems to ensure they're operating properly and as effectively as they can, and they'll make recommendations that we can follow to increase that if it's possible. They'll do some air quality testing, and they'll also look at our cleaning protocols and make recommendations there and test after we've cleaned and sanitized to ensure that that's happening effectively. So we've been meeting with them. We met again today. Steve Foster, our facilities manager, and Greg Roberts, who is our facilities guru. He knows all our systems as well as anybody. And John Mulling, the maintenance and custodial supervisor. And they understand that we need this done as quickly as possible. Not surprisingly, they have a lot of schools that are now reaching out to them, but I think we got in quick enough. They do know that the 31st is the deadline that we need them to meet, so they are working feverishly to do that and provide us with the information that we have requested. Any questions?
Dr. Mealy, how much money, sorry, Madam Chair, may I ask a question? The question is, can you tell us how much you're spending on this HVAC report? And
It's $46,000.
$46,000?
Yes.
North Andover Cam, I don't know if you can turn up the microphones, but I'm having difficulty hearing the committee members.
Can you hear us now?
I can hear you now.
All right.
Helen, can you hear me okay? Someone said they can't hear me.
Yeah, it's very difficult to hear everybody. Everybody really needs to lean into that. And I know the public has told us this for years. You really need to lean into your microphones, and you really need to use your voice as if you're trying to speak to a deaf person halfway across the room.
So ask your question.
I'll ask it again. I asked Dr. Mealy how much we were spending on the report.
Yep.
Dr. Mealy?
Yeah, and it's still $46,000.
That's for the chair's benefit. Thank you, Dr. Mealy.
Any other
Are there
questions?
any other questions?
So this is the second study that's been done?
Well, so there's a lot going on. We had our own facilities manager, Steve Foster, and Greg and DPW take a look at our systems. One of the things that comes up is the use of air filters in the highest quality air filter and most effective air filter you can use, but that's only if the system allows it. So, you know, there's a MERV 13 and a MERV 15, which are these very efficient filters, but they would overtax our system. Our system wouldn't be able to use those. So we use the most effective filter we can use within our system, which still allows us to provide clean air and meets the standards. But so that was done. In addition, every 3 years we have our systems checked, and that actually coincided with this point in time. That's happening now as well. So we have a lot of testing going on right now.
And is that every classroom that's being tested?
So the TRC will test every classroom.
Okay. And will they come back and do any form of recheck once we have had faculty, staff and students in to see if they're all functioning, if there's, I don't know, an increase in particles or whatever it is that happens to be in there.
So we can,
Filters are dirty. I don't know. Whatever.
yeah, no,
the-
well, we do change the filters actually even more than is required. So I wouldn't anticipate that being an issue. But they certainly could come back and check the air quality, and we could negotiate that with them because the current contract is just for this initial analysis and recommendations.
Okay. I think based on the results of that, we may want to see
Exactly.
I don't know what the interval may be, but a monthly check or something
Mhm.
of that nature. Okay.
Are there other questions from the committee?
Nope.
Hearing none, Dr. Gilligan?
Yeah, so a couple of announcements. Number one is prior to tonight's meeting, I want to thank NACAM for filming a clip that they'll be putting together and putting out. We had some folks participate in a visit to a school and what that would look like socially distanced. Joe Clark, principal of the Franklin School, was a gracious host. And we got on a bus here at North Andover Central Office at 566 Main Street. And I really appreciate Brian LaGrasse, the Director of Public Health, Melissa Murphy-Rodriguez, the Town Manager, Steve Foster, the Facilities Director for the DPW and Schools. We had Jim Mealy, Dr. Mealy, the Assistant Superintendent, Cheryl Barzak, the school committee members, select person, Rosemary Smedili. Thank you so much for coming. And I'm not sure if I missed anyone else there, but we will get that up on NACAM. And it was a really great experience in the sense of, showing up at a school, what it might feel like wearing a mask, going into a classroom. And we anticipate, more and more information going out to families from principals and schools around reopening. You should be getting a communication tomorrow from principals with an update. We were in the process this week of confirming the participation in the OLA, taking those out of the numbers. Principals will be sending an update tomorrow, and we anticipate next week that we'll be looking at the split alphabetically and making schedules. It's pretty labor intensive with this going to the full day at the high school, taking the students out at all the different grade levels with OLA, and we look forward to that along with other information around reopening, safety, and those components. The second part is that on the line here, we have Brian LaGrasse, Carolyn Ibbotson from the town side of public health, and Cheryl Barzak. I really want to thank them for the work that they've been doing as part of the school reopening plan. We have tremendous guidelines within the plan from the state, but I'll let Cheryl Barzak chime in just for a minute. The work they've done collaboratively to put all the different protocols in place to open up school, and the work that's been ongoing has been a really collaborative and remarkable effort. Cheryl, do you want to say anything about that?
Thanks, Dr. Gilligan. Again, Caroline Ibbotson and I have worked together on a lot of these frequently asked questions that some were mentioned earlier today. And hopefully we'll get those on the website next week. Sorry, I'm having trouble with the volume. And as well as the questions that Ms. Picard mentioned tonight, we have those answered as well, and we'll get those up on the website next week under that frequently asked questions. There's new guidelines that came out yesterday, so those will make it a little bit easier for classrooms and for contact tracing, and we'll make sure that parents get that information as well.
Thank you, Cheryl. Really appreciate it. I know many places just have the state guidelines linked, and they are lengthy, and the work that you guys are doing to keep our kids safe and make it easy to read and understandable is appreciated. Speaking of new guidance, unless anyone has any questions for Cheryl or Public Health?
I was just going to ask them, those new guidelines that came out yesterday, did that dramatically change what you already had been putting in place for our reopening in our district?
It mostly just provided some clarification. It changed some of the way elementary classrooms, some of the limitations that they had earlier are a little bit better well-defined. And it clarified there was some discrepancy between DPH guidelines and DESI guidelines, and we weren't really sure who to follow. We were going to stick with DPH, but now they've met and the guidelines are the same. So it makes it easier for us.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you.
I do have one question, somewhat tangentially, Cheryl. Also this week, the governor, the State Department of Public Health said that flu vaccinations are going to be mandated for all, I guess, students between kindergarten and I think around the age of 30. I don't want to say I need an answer right now, but maybe in the next couple of weeks, could we get information on what role the schools and the towns can play to help facilitate that? I'm sure we have, I think I read we have a very high vaccination rate anyways, but if we can provide flu clinics at the school level or the town level, I don't know how much that stuff costs, but I think it's something we should actively look at if we can help do that.
Caroline might want to say a few things. I know she had some new ideas for this year to increase participation and to streamline and make it easier during this COVID situation. But yes, we've always had the family flu clinics, and we've worked collaboratively for many, many years to get as many people flu vaccine as possible. Caroline?
Sure, thank you. So every year we've done the family flu clinic, which is just one clinic that is really open to all ages. So last year I felt like after that clinic, we really needed to kind of offer more options for our families, because between the pediatrician's office and, just limited clinic times there. So we were talking about doing like a second style of a family flu clinic to have two options, and then also doing a drive-through flu clinic. So we're still kind of figuring out all the details to that, but we'll have those in addition to the normal 3 senior center clinics that we normally run. I usually go to all the school buildings and do the staff, and then DPW. So the problem with the school vaccines is that we have to use the state supplied vaccine. We don't typically do a lot of school-aged children. We maybe do around 200 on the family flu clinic. So they've allowed us to get more vaccines. So we're trying to, have more clinics available so that we can provide those to the school-aged children.
Thank you. I think it just might be beneficial that, not right now, but in the next couple weeks, how are we going to enforce this, and how are we going to, okay, Greg, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, so Carolyn, I know this just came out, and I know it was, I believe, it was a headline in the Boston Globe today. We did do a call with the Commissioner of Education at DESE, and my understanding at this point is they're looking to try to set a deadline of vaccinations for the ages mentioned before December 31st of this year, and that they would also be coming out with more guidelines and guidance on exemptions, et cetera. So it sounds like they have a little more information that they want to put out and provide that they didn't have at the start.
Thank you.
Okay. So speaking of other guidance, and I'll get it posted tomorrow on the website, information around athletics. So it's interesting in the sense of you have DESE, which is the State Department of Education. You have the MI2A, which is an organization that oversees athletics for all the high schools that participate in Massachusetts. And you also have an organization called the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, known as EEA. And they put out guidance on the 18th and with some other information around sports seasons in the Commonwealth at the high school level. I will post the information, get more details on it. I know that there was a conference call, first one today, information with principals and athletic directors around the Commonwealth. I also met with, almost 40 superintendents today around this issue of athletics. So I'll post it. There's, like I said, it looks like there are proposal for some sports, not all, a floating season, And, you know, I think it will be really critical to bring all the information to this board so that they have all of that information before we proceed, and we work closely with the local Board of Health, as well as, you know, following all of the different guidelines. But the DESE and the MI2A released a joint statement, and I'll post all of that on the web first thing in the morning.
Do any committee members have other questions for Dr. Gilligan?
Not at this time.
No.
Nope.
Okay,
Can I
All
add
right.
one last thing?
of course.
So I did get some information a while back, but it was embargoed, but now I see it on the, I see it as for immediate release on the DESE website. I'm excited to announce it on the DESE website. They must have just posted it in the last hour or two. The Baker-Polito administration awarded $33 million in remote learning technology grants to schools across the Commonwealth, and the town of North Andover, we did apply, and we did receive, we've been awarded $71,317 in 0 cents, and that, we're appreciative. I appreciate the work Mike Grant had done on that, and like I said, it seems like it's breaking news at this moment.
Great. Congratulations, Michael Grant.
It's very good news.
And that's it for
Okay.
the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gilligan and team. I know all of you are working so well and together. It's really a pleasure to be hearing updates from you all. So the chair's report. I sent out an email to the committee this week suggesting that we need to look at Thursdays between now and when school is fully in session. So I asked you to look at Thursdays, August 27th to September 24th, and let me know of any conflicts that you have, that you know that you have. I did not hear from anybody. We have a number of policies that are going to need to be updated. We have a number of first readings tonight. We're going to need to have second readings on some of those. On some of those, we're going to ask to suspend the rules and have a vote tonight. On some of those, we're going to wait and have second readings. And once we have those policies in place, we're going to need to update the handbook. So all those things are going to need to be done, I think, before August 31st, when teachers will be starting their professional development. So we will need to have a number of meetings between now and then, and this is a very dynamic and fluid situation where we're getting updates regularly and actions that this committee needs to take. So I would ask now if any of you are aware of conflicts you have between on Thursday nights from August 27 to September 24. Is anybody aware of any conflicts they have?
Chair Picard, I'm just curious if you have a time window. We've been doing a lot of meetings at 6, and we kind of are switching to 7. Are we going back to 7 o'clock, do you think?
So we started tonight. We wanted to make sure that there was enough time for the visit to school, which started at 5 o'clock. We wanted to start that towards the end of the workday for folks. And we had an executive session that started at 6 o'clock. So weren't not able to start our open session until almost 7:30 tonight. It was the preference of this committee to meet earlier in the summer, but I'm open to meeting at 6 or 7 o'clock. I think it's best for us to meet in the evening hours. I think that's best for the community to follow our deliberations, as well as for those of us who have more regular work hours. So I would be happy to hear your input, Ms. Mabley, and from others if you'd rather start at 6 or if you'd rather start at 7. I'm imagining we're going to need to have a number of executive sessions because we are actively engaged in negotiations right now with a couple of our unions because the situation is creating an impact to their current agreements with us. So if we do need to have executive sessions, I would imagine those would mostly start at 6. But if we don't have an executive session, and if we have a 6 o'clock executive session, I think it would probably move most of our meetings to 7 o'clock. But if we don't have an executive session, we could start at 6 or 7, whatever is the preference of the committee.
So, Madam Chair, are you looking to schedule a meeting every single Thursday between now and the 24th, or are those placeholders?
They're placeholders. We definitely will be needing to schedule some meetings. As I said, I anticipate that we will need to meet next week, just have second readings of some of these things, and we will need to meet the following week to approve a handbook, and we'll probably need to suspend the rules to do that. So I'm anticipating that the 27th and whatever the Thursday is after that, is that the
third.
The 3rd of September, those 2 dates I'm definitely anticipating that we'll need meetings, and then we may or may not need meetings thereafter. We might get into a more regular every 2-week session. Anybody else?
No problems.
Nope.
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay. So if you do come up with a conflict, please let me know so that we can try to schedule when. We can have meetings with less than 5 of us, but it seems like our work is very critical at this point, and everybody's voice at the table is very important, I feel. So if we can accommodate having all 5 of us present to make these decisions, I think that's best for the community. Ms. Mabley, would you like to share anything about your classroom experience today?
Sure. Dr. Gilligan already mentioned how it went, but I thought it was very valuable to get a chance to go into the Franklin School. We lined up out front the way the students would be lining up, and the principal, Mr. Clark, did a beautiful job explaining their plans and how things were going. We saw all kinds of signage that is already starting to go up about hand washing, and I found particularly valuable when we went into the classroom, spread 6 feet apart, the way the desks were organized was very thoughtful, and I found it to be a valuable experience. So I'm guessing my colleagues feel the same, but they can certainly share if they would like to. But I know that we'll work with North Andover CAM to assemble all the footage that we made and any other data that needs to be added, and we can share that with the public so people can see what the rooms look like.
Yeah, it's really my hope that the students and families will have a visual experience of what the schools are looking like and feeling like as we approach the start of this school year. Is there anybody else on the committee that would want to share something about that visit at this time?
I would just say Mr. Teresi and I were actually car drop-offs this morning or this evening, and we didn't ride the bus to school, but we seamlessly kind of entered the building. I thought it was great. I was really unsure what the classroom was going to look like. It looked very similar to how it always has. I think just the configuration of desks were a little bit different. Very thoughtful, I thought, in terms of being able to, they were paired in 2s. One desk would be used on one side, for example, and the next on the opposite cohort, which created some very good natural spacing. It was great to just be in a classroom and kind of see that, and that was very comforting, just the thoughtfulness of all of them. Mr. Clark was quick to point out, that markers were going to be on the floors so that students would have an understanding of what 6 feet is. I mean, I think we kind of assume as adults that we know roughly what that is, but children don't necessarily understand what that distance is, and so that was great. And then there were, I don't even know exactly what you call them, but touchless water dispensers for filling water bottles and things of that sort. And he really walked us through the process and the protocol of how the students would use bathroom facilities as needed, of course, and how they would do some things with lunch and snack time and mask breaks as part of the lessons, and even the ability for the teacher to be at the head of the classroom per se, and then be able to kind of move around with adequate spacing between the first desks or the first row of desks that were there. Extremely well planned out, and I thought it was great for us to kind of see that, and I'm looking forward to seeing the video once it's posted. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I just say that I'm sure the other elementary school principals and the middle school principal and the high school principal have given this a lot of thought, but it was clear to me that Joe Clark had. and it was just informative to see and hear him speak. I think parents should have a lot of comfort. I think teachers should have a lot of comfort knowing that the administrators are taking it very, very seriously. And I'm just curious, Dr. Gillen, now that we only have 12 kids in the class, is that going to help us get our class size down? We're going to meet our benchmark finally after all these years. We only have 12 kids per class.
Yeah,
There's no performance bonus for that, by the way.
no, it's something. It's something that that relationship and being, in a classroom for the first time in 6 months, it will, I think, really work well. And I really do appreciate Principal Clark. He usually volunteers for things right away.
He's shy. He's very shy.
Yeah. But all of our principals have been working with their school-based leadership teams and their school-based COVID response teams to look at operationalizing all the work that we've put into our planning and working with the Board of Health and working with the Fire Department and all these different people. And I just appreciate all of their hard work because, we showed up tonight and the things you take for granted typically in a normal year, we had to be really directed. And that was even started getting on the bus. And kudos to the bus driver
She was
tonight
excellent.
and the company for coming out and really providing excellent instruction and direction. And I think that I do know that our students pick up things probably faster than some of us here in the room or as adults. And so I appreciate their work.
Thank you, Dr. Gilligan. Holly, do you want to chime in? Do you want to have anything?
Sure, I would just add that the level of detail in both the classroom and the bus was very impressive, even to the getting on the bus in the same order, getting off and on, and assigned seats on the bus. I thought looked like it was very well thought out, everything.
That's terrific. That's wonderful. Thank you all for making the time in your schedules to do that.
Hi, Helen. This is Brian from the Health Department. How are you?
Oh, sorry, Brian. Jump in. Yes.
Yep, I'm chiming too. So that was my first bus ride in 30 years.
More than that.
It's great to see something actually in person versus seeing it on paper or reading about it. So to see the classroom set up, see how things, how to line up, how to get in there, how to get out. I think all the planning is definitely paying off, and Joe Clark did a great job. I also spoke to Steve Foster about the air and the HVAC stuff that they're looking at, and I'm looking forward to the report they're going to be getting next week. Everything was done very well, very detailed, and it was good to see it in person. And these guys have done a fantastic job from a health standpoint.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate that. I know the schools are so appreciative of the work that we're able to do in partnership with you and the support that we're getting from you. So I really appreciate that. Anybody else on the call wants to make a comment about that? Cheryl, Caroline? Suzanne, I don't think you went. No. Okay. I wanted to respond to requests from members of this committee as well as from the community that school committee be held in a classroom. And I'm going to share my concerns and issues about in-person classroom meeting of the school committee. I have three concerns. One, the work of this committee is best completed in a roundtable manner. And as committee members state that this is, or may be, the most important work we ever do together, I recommend we do so in the best possible setting for our business meeting. And I believe the best possible setting for our business meeting is to work in the hybrid model that we've used since March. Administration and school committee members who prefer may attend in the physical setting at central office in the conference room. And other school committee members and administration and others can join remotely. And I believe this provides all with the best audio and visual experience of the meeting and for members of the public. And to that end, I want to thank North Andover CAM. I did ask earlier in this meeting that they turn up microphones, and I asked members to please speak clearly and directly into their microphone, and I have not had any difficulties hearing you since then, so I appreciate that. Second, people have asked about in-person participation, and according to council, in-person participation is not possible at this time in any indoor setting. The public would only be able to attend in person if we did an outside event, much like the town meeting. And town meeting took us quite a few weeks to set up. And given the work that we all need to do at this point, having An in-person meeting outdoors in uncertain weather does not seem the wisest thing to me. And the public will have attendance access through live stream for any meeting, either hybrid or in person, according to the governor's order for the open meeting law at this time. We do accept public comment, and we have invited members of the public to speak. And number 3, we do not know the health risks or needs of the current or future school committee members. It does not seem appropriate to me that a school committee member now or in the future feel compelled to disclose private medical information and or family situations and or be hindered from doing the work of the committee by simply following the governor's March 12th order regarding open meeting law, which not only allows but also encourages members to meet remotely. For the time being, we will continue to meet remotely as the order allows and encourages. And we are on to our next agenda item, which is old business. And we are on policy work, which our fearless vice chair, Amy Mabley, has been leading the charge on for quite a while. So Amy, I'll let you do that. And I'll remind us all that Suzanne Egan is here to help us out as well.
I'm going to turn it right to Suzanne Egan, and she will lead us through the policy discussion. She and Holly and I met to talk specifically about this first one, and then some other that will come on later in new business. So Suzanne, if you would.
Yes, thank you. So the first policy that is before you is policy EBC, and that's a supplemental interim policy for the school committee to adopt in response to the operational changes required from the COVID-19. It essentially states that the school committee recognizes certain goals, which are for the public health and safety of the students, faculty, and staff, to provide effective educational services. It authorizes changes to the educational protocols as needed as a result of the operational changes. It also recognizes that it may be necessary to revise and suspend other policies that are in place currently, and that the current back to school plan will be the school district's policy during this time period. And it allows the superintendent to also act quickly as possible to carry out the back to school plan in order to provide the educational goals and the public health and safety. And that essentially concludes that EBC policy. I can go on to the EBCA, which is a related policy, and that calls out specifically particular policies that will be revised and suspended as a result of the changes in the operation of the school district due to the COVID-19 state of emergency. So this one calls out each specific policies, and it says that in certain instances, the superintendent may act to revise or suspend the policies, provided that the school committee's approval is first obtained. And those relate to the changes to the school calendar, grading, retention of students, graduation requirements, protocols with extracurricular activities, policies for attending school events and visitors to school buildings and property. Additionally, there are some policies the superintendent may take action with regard to in compliance with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's guidance and any rules and regulations that are promulgated by either the federal, state, or local government, just so that the superintendent may act in compliance with those without school committee approval. And that's with regard to certain disciplinary matters, job descriptions for staff, facilitating the education of students with special needs, contact tracing with anybody who has a positive test result for COVID-19, and the transportation of students. And then there are also some policies that the superintendent may find it necessary to act to that are in in conflict with existing policies, to revise or suspend those. And those are the ones that are subject to working with the union that may be subject, maybe matters which are subject to the collective bargaining agreement. And I think the purpose of both of these policies is to acknowledge that the school is going to be operating in a different manner, and that what we have before us is the back to school plan, and we have to take the measures that are necessary to effectuate that plan, as opposed to relying on the existing policies.
Okay, so before we go into discussion, we have a request to suspend the rules to vote on these policies tonight. And so I wonder if there would be, help me, Mr. Teresi, do we move the item and then suspend the rules, or do we suspend the rules and then move the item?
I would say we should just move to suspend the rules to take it out.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules.
Good.
So moved.
And I will second the motion.
Okay, so moved by Mr. McDevitt and seconded by Mr. Teresi to suspend the rules so that we can vote on this tonight. And then I would entertain a motion to approve the policy, after which we will have discussion. So is there a motion to approve the policy?
We have to vote first.
No, we have to.
We have to vote to suspend the rules.
Oh, sorry. Thank you all. You're so helpful to me. Okay, so roll call vote to suspend the rules. Mr. Teresi.
Aye.
Ms. Mabley.
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Lynch.
Yes.
Okay, and the chair votes yes, so that's 5-0 to suspend the rules. And now we need a motion to approve the policies.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, so moved by Ms. Mabley and seconded by Ms. Lynch. And roll call vote, Mr.
Well, now we're going to discuss.
Any discussion?
Oh, sorry. I'm off my game tonight, you guys.
That's okay.
Any discussion?
None for me.
Questions for Suzanne? Hearing none, no discussion?
Nope.
Okay, so we're ready to vote? And we will do that by roll call. Mr. Teresi.
Aye.
Ms. Mabley.
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Lynch.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that is 5-0 to approve policies EBC and EBCA to address COVID-19 as presented in the packet or linked to the agenda. We are on old business B, which is the second reading to approve the Eagle Scout project by Aidan Loth of Troop 87. So I would entertain a motion, after which we will have discussion.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Mr. McDevitt and seconded by Mr. Teresi. Is there any discussion? Dr. Mealy, can you provide us any update? You were planning to take a look at the site and the plans?
Yes, actually, I got to visit the site and connect with Aidan, have some questions answered, and got confirmation from Steve Foster that we all believe this would be a very good project and is well thought out. We did pass on David's suggestion, and Aidan is going to look into that. And yeah, we have no issues with this. We would definitely support this. We think it's going to provide an excellent view for CAM to be able to video any of the activities that are taking place up there.
That's great. And we have heard from Brian Frazier that he is greatly appreciative of the opportunity that this will afford North Andover CAM in covering sports and activities up on the upper field. So if there is no further discussion, we're ready for a vote. We'll do that by roll call, starting with Mr. Teresi.
Aye.
Ms. Mabley?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Aye.
Ms. Lynch?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so that's 5-0 in favor of approving the Eagle Scout project. Congratulations, Aiden. We're looking forward to
It's great.
hearing how that goes. We'll love to have you back for a report when it's finished. And if you'll be calling for volunteers, which I think most Eagle projects, I think that's part of the requirement, I'm sure that we'll be happy to hear when you might be able to accept volunteers, socially distanced and appropriately PPE'd. And we're on to new business, which the first order of new business is a first reading of the proposed revisions to the 2020-21 school calendar, and we're looking at the first day of school. And I would ask Mr. McDevitt, are you willing to speak to this?
Sure. So I'm just trying to pull it up here. I apologize. I'm a little bit. Nope. So the reason for, there we go. It's loading now. We okay there? So the reason why we're discussing this is currently in the teacher's contract, which we negotiated over the past fall, winter, and spring. The start of the school year for teachers is August 31st, with students returning on September 2nd. Sorry, I'm just making sure I have this right. Or no, I think the teachers were returning on the 31st.
The new teacher orientation was the 28th.
Right.
Regular teachers, returning teachers were coming on the 31st.
On the
and students were
31st, okay.
starting.
All right, I knew there was a difference with the August dates. Thank you. I have it here, too. Based on the modification from the governor from 180 school days down to 170, with the optional 10 days for professional development, we have been working with the union over the past couple of months throughout the summer. And we would recommend that we keep the first day of school for the teachers to be August 31st, continue with professional development for the 10 days, with students returning on September 16th. So the change is really mostly for the students from the 2nd of September to the 16th of September.
Okay. And that was in the administration's proposal for the hybrid to have 10 PD days. Dr. Gilligan, would you like to address that?
Yeah, so to Andrew's point, the commissioner reduced the school requirement to 170 days in order to provide these 10 days at the start of the school year before instruction of student begins, to work with all educators to prepare for the new school year, which will be a new school year unlike any school year we've had in the past, or probably ever. So that is why on the back to school plan, the recommendation was to have the first day of school was tentatively, it said, September 16th. That was the last day under the guidance from the state that school could start without applying for an additional waiver if you were going to start later than that.
So at this point, we're looking for a motion to change the first day of school for students to September 16th. So I would entertain that motion, and then we would follow that with discussion. Do I have a motion to move the start day of school for students to September 16th?
I will move that.
Second. Did you hear that?
So I believe that I heard that moved by Ms. Mably and seconded.
No, motion by Mr. McDevitt, second by Ms. Mably.
I'm sorry, motion
That's
by
okay.
Mr. McDevitt and second by Ms. Mably.
It was the initials. That's it.
That's right.
Yeah,
I sweared.
I found that difficult as clerk, because I would always write AM and then I'd write AM McD. So discussion.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Teresi.
Thank you very much. So anyways, I wanted to say thank you to all the people who have been writing us and communicating with us and talking about how they have a strong desire to get back into school as soon as possible with as much, in-person learning You know, I think Brian mentioned it, but I know Dr. Fitzgibbon's letter mentioned that the great progress the state has made, the town has made in fighting COVID. I just read today that today we had the lowest 7-day average for positive tests, reached 1.3%. Today was 1.2, but the 7-day weighted average was 1.3. So obviously people are doing what they need to do. And it's clear to me from talking to people want to go to school as much as possible. So I would like to further amend the motion to make the start date September 9th instead of September 16th.
So I have a motion to amend the start date to September 9th. Do I have a second? for that?
The same PDD as August 31st, but the start date for students will be September 9th.
Okay, so a start date for September 9th. I have a motion to amend. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
I hear Ms. Lynch seconded. And so we have discussion.
I could just elaborate more that I just think it's important right now while, you know, things are going well and, you know, people are taking it very seriously. The positivity rates are way down. It behooves us to get the kids in the classroom sooner rather than later. So that's why I made the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Teresi. Ms. Mabley, do you have anything you want to add?
I actually appreciate the plans that have been put forth, or I know that they're not final, but they've been sketched out by the superintendent and his team for how they would use those days to not only prepare teachers for getting kids back into school after many people have mentioned the 5 months of being remote and alone, the time it's going to take to social emotionally get kids ready, the training for that, the just getting used to the protocols of moving around the building in a new way that they're not used to. And also I think that the time for training teachers to improve their remote learning skills and their arsenal for how best to do that. And I also think that time is really important for parent training and getting kids eased in to get their material. So I prefer to stick with the days as outlined for starting on the 16th.
Thank you, Ms. Mabley. Ms. Vitsky-Lynch.
I'd actually like to hear what the PD days will be. I know you did send something out, but I don't know if that was a public document or not, so.
Dr. Gilligan?
Yeah, so absolutely. I think that the 10 PD days sketched out for all of our staff at all levels is around health and safety, on protocols, on practices, on logistics, around operations, around food services, around technology, around collaboration and preparing lessons across the teams, as well as the SEL component. It is quite a big task for all that we have to accomplish, and I believe we need all of those 10 days for professional development.
Ms. Lynch?
I was just going to ask, can you speak to why he needs the 10 days, but I think he just answered that.
Okay, and Mr. McDevitt?
So I won't be supporting the motion. I've been working with the teachers union, with Mrs. Picard and the administration, as I mentioned before, for a good amount of time this summer. It is very clear to me that there's a desire for the community to have children return to school. It's very clear to me that teachers want to return to school in the best way that they're able to do that. I think that those PD days are needed for training on how to be shepherds for our children and the community, for them to collaborate, to grow and learn with the technology that's there so that we have the best hybrid experience possible. I don't think most people agree that the spring, when we kind of immediately shut down and tried to transition, was the best. I think that there was a lot of hard work that was done with that, but I think we recognize that we want to do better. And I think giving the teachers the time in order to do this so that they can adjust to being teachers in a classroom with half their time, and then the second day, and then, switching to a remote on that Wednesday, and then returning back to that pattern. I think they absolutely need the time to do that. So I will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you. I really don't have much to add. I think that I appreciate what Mr. Teresi is trying to say. I didn't feel that I read in public comment or elsewhere that folks were looking for a start date prior to September 16th. And I see the benefit of providing that professional development to our teachers. So we, if there's no further discussion, we can have a vote on the amendment.
Ms. Picard, one last thing. I just wanted to recognize the incredible amount of time and effort that you and Andrew have put into this. I know you guys are working your tails off, negotiating, and I know a lot of it comes from your personal free time and your work time. So I just want to say thank you for doing that.
It is an honor to serve.
I mean, sarcasm travels greatly through this.
She's not being sarcastic.
I don't want to say. You're welcome. Thank you. You've done a lot of work too. I know you have. At different times. So
on that note, very quickly, I do want to say and acknowledge, the teachers and the union representatives, Bill Brady, Ryan Landry, Lisa Razanen, even their union rep, the administration. There's a tremendous amount of time, and there's an awful lot of collaboration and honest and real feelings that are kind of put out in conversations, and it's raw and it's difficult, and I want to thank the union, and I want to know how much we respect their leadership and the trust that you've put in them as we do this together.
Okay. So I think that we're ready to vote on the amendment, and I will start with Mr. Teresi.
Yes, aye.
And Ms. Mabley.
The amendment that Mr. Teresi made?
Yes, to start on the 9th of September.
No.
And Ms. Lynch?
No.
Mr. McDevitt?
No.
And the chair votes no, so the amendment fails 1-4. And we are back to the original motion, which is to start on the student start on the 16th of September. Is there further discussion on that?
And the teachers to start on the 31st, right?
And the teachers to start on the 31st of August. And returning teachers to start on the 31st of August, new hires to start on the 28th of August. Hearing no discussion,
I have a question.
Wait.
Yep.
There's discussion, I'm ready.
No, I just had a clarification. So when they start on the 16th, that's a remote day they're starting.
That is correct.
Okay.
In the
it's a
hybrid
Wednesday.
plan, the 16th is a Wednesday, which is remote for all students in both cohorts. And will be remote for OLA as well. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. Roll call vote, starting with Mr. Teresi.
Aye.
Ms. Mabley?
Yes.
Ms. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Aye.
And the chair votes yes, and so that is a 5-0 vote in support of the first day of school for students on September 16th. Thank you.
So just one clarification, so that there's no
Yes.
confusion. The Bradstreet will be in session
Oh, right.
on that
Oh, that's
on
right.
Wednesday.
They don't have remote days.
Correct.
So the kindergarten will start in person on the 16th.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, so new business B, we're back to policy work, and we're back to Ms. Mabley.
Okay, sorry, I'm making a note about something else. Okay.
Should we start with the request to suspend the rules, or can you tell us why we need to suspend the rules, or should we start with?
You got to give me a second. I'm not even on the agenda. Give me 1 second.
I'm waiting patiently.
I was writing a note. Okay,
Title IX
so.
one.
Oh, Title IX, yes. So, again, Suzanne can explain why, but yes, we do need to suspend the rules because this is a federal change. So, Suzanne, if you would.
Yes, I can explain this. So the federal Title IX rules and regulations have been revised and changed, and it is a mandate that each school district that receives federal funds must adopt and implement these rules. And that's a mandate to do that in August. And so it's important for the school committee to adopt these at their earliest convenience. And there's nothing here contained within this policy that really has contains anything that the school committee would have any discretion over.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to suspend the rules so we can vote on this policy.
I'll second
Okay,
it.
so
I'll second
we
it.
have Mr. Teresi moved and Mr. McDevitt seconded. No discussion? Okay, so roll call vote. Mr. Teresi?
Aye.
Mr. McDevitt?
Aye.
Ms. Lynch?
Yes.
Ms. Mably?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so we have voted to suspend the rules, and now I need a motion on
Adopting the policy.
adopting and effectuating the Title IX amendments.
So moved.
Second.
That was Mr. Teresi,
Yes.
Second.
and seconded
Ms.
Holly.
Lynch?
Yeah.
by Ms. Lynch. Any discussion? Hearing none, are we ready to vote? By roll call, Mr. Teresi,
Aye.
Ms. Mably,
Yes.
Ms. Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes, so that is 5-0 in favor of adopting and effectuating the Title IX amendments. And we're on to new business letter C, which is the first reading of proposed revisions to the Policy Act, to Policy A and C. Do we go straight to council?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Yes, thank you. So policy AC is a particular policy that's drafted that relates particularly to the school district, and that also implements the Title IX regulations and guidelines, but it's an overarching one that essentially states the school district's non-discrimination policy, and then it refers to the procedures that will be contained within the employee handbook and the student handbook. It's a little bit different from how we have it now. Currently, the policy is adopted by the school committee, and also as a policy, the grievance procedures are also adopted, which policies are typically not procedures. They're typically something that would be in the administrative process. So that would go into a student handbook and an employee handbook. And that's how grievances under the policy will be reviewed and investigated. And so policy AC specifically is a broad statement that the school district does not accept and completely prohibits any type of discrimination based on any of the protected classes listed.
Okay. I don't see listed here that there's a request to suspend the rules. Do we need to approve this tonight?
We do
No.
not.
So what I have done is I wanted to make sure that that the school committee adopted a policy implementing and adopting the Title IX amendment. And that's what you just did on the first policy. And policy AC is something that I think it's it's a meaty policy and the procedures are pretty meaty. So I wanted to give the school committee an opportunity to review those. And so this does not have to be adopted tonight, but it can go to a second reading and everybody has a chance to look at it and review the procedures and ask any questions at the next school committee meeting.
Okay. And before we move off of this, are there questions from committee members to Ms. Egan? Hearing, yeah?
Yes, so this is Amy Mably. I just want, if you can clarify, Suzanne, that the two key things that people need to click on to get into the procedures, I believe, are the two blue highlighted linked areas, district's Title IX sexual harassment grievance procedures and district civil rights grievance procedures. And these are the things that will go in the teacher handbook and the student handbooks. Is that correct?
Yes, that is right. Yes.
And so,
Any other questions?
just a tangential to that, so we would need to, adopt this or look at this for next week, but at the same time, start moving those data points into the student handbook and the teacher handbook for our review shortly thereafter. Right?
Exactly.
Suzanne? Yeah, okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and so, and that student handbook always comes to the school committee for approval. So you'll have a chance to discuss those and review those during the student handbook approval process.
And it
So
will come
are
from
we
here.
anticipating student handbook to be on the next agenda next week? Or do we need to approve these before we get to the student?
I think, and I would need to speak with Attorney Egan, but I think that she's starting to work with the team to draft any revisions to the student handbook. We don't have to wait until we adopt this per se for them to start putting the changes together. I just don't know that it'll be ready.
All right, and
how
we
extensive
generally
the
get
changes
like
are.
a red letter edition, right? With whatever the
Yes.
changes are highlighted or
That's
in
correct.
a different color.
That's
Okay.
correct. Would you agree with that, Attorney Egan?
Yes, I do. I agree with that, yes.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any other questions from the committee? I just want to really appreciate the work that Ms. Mabley is doing and Attorney Egan, as well as Attorney Vitsky-Lynch. They've spent an awful lot of time on policy. There's a lot of things up in the air, and I know Mr. Teresi offered to help with that as well. So thank you all for that work. Okay, so that's done, and we're on to new business letter D, which is the first reading of policy EBCFA on face coverings.
Yes.
It's a loud cat.
Do we go straight to Attorney Egan, or Ms. Mabley, do you have something to
So
say?
I can just say, so Attorney Egan drafted all of this, and then it was reviewed through by Ms. Barzak, and so this is the first draft of the policy. I don't know if the two of them would like to speak to it, and then I know that I and others have questions as well.
All right, so
I can give a little brief overview of the face covering.
thank you.
So the face covering policy is consistent with Governor Baker's orders regarding face masks, and it requires anybody who comes onto school property to wear a face covering. There is an exception for particular students who, due to medical behavior or other challenges, need an exemption from the policy. A doctor's note was required in order to have that exemption, and that decision will be made in consultation with the building principal and the school nurse or the local board of health. Students will be required to bring their masks to school with them. There will be masks available for anybody who arrives at a school property without one. And visitors without coming to school without a mask will be provided a mask, or they will be denied entry into the school facilities.
Thank you. Ms. Barzak, do you want to add your wisdom?
I reviewed it just to make sure that what was sent to me was correct and everything is there. I mean, it really does just follow the guidelines.
Okay, thank you. So committee members have questions or comments or concerns?
So
I will start.
is it
with
all right?
Ms.
I'll
Mabley.
I'll start, because I know I raised this, and I don't know if Ms. Barzak would want to address it, but I know also we had a public comment asking the same question. Will we be able to also provide, do we have criteria for what is an acceptable or an unacceptable facial covering or a mask? And are we going to be providing pictorial representations of these?
So we'll do the best we can to get pictures, but it's pretty straightforward that, it needs to cover, the nose and mouth. It needs to, there's a list, where are they? It has to fit snugly. There shouldn't be gaps. You don't want to have difficulty breathing. It has to be secure, and then, guidelines on how to keep it clean. I'm not sure you want all of that in the policy, but we'll certainly provide that to parents and provide education to all of our students and staff, as soon as we can.
Yes, exactly. I don't think we need it in the policy, but I do think people need to know if there are any type of mask that you will, or we as a district are not accepting. I know there's been discussion about that in the media, and I didn't know if you had any information about that.
So there has been discussion in all of our CDC and DPH phone calls. They're sticking with these guidelines for now. The the discussion was a lot about gaiters, and that one Duke study had some limitations to it, and that particular gaiter was fleece, and there are a lot of types of gaiters, so I would hate to rule something out. Caroline and I discussed this. She's used gaiters that are double layered and have filters in them. So I don't want to rule out things that are good for some students, because we do want everyone to be able to wear a mask. So I don't want to limit too many things. I think that we should allow the nurse to make sure that a mask is effective, and we'll provide a different mask if we don't think what the student wears to school is correct.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from committee members? Mr. Teresi
Nope, not this time. No, don't have any.
and Mr. McDevitt?
I do actually have one. So I understand that there are exceptions that in some cases will be made for students who, for medical reasons, are not able to wear a mask. And the question has come up from some parents about their children being in those classrooms, and whether or not, A, they're notified, and B, they have an option to be in an, shall we say, opposite cohort or classroom, depending on school and grade, et cetera. So I'm wondering if the administration could speak to that, or perhaps Mrs. Barzak.
Mrs. Barzak, do you want to talk about any of the modifications or exemptions and other risk mitigating things
So
such
there's
as shields?
there's very few medical reasons why you wouldn't be able to wear a mask. So I think some of the younger children will have to help them, and we did post a video about parents on how to teach your child to wear a mask. I'm not sure the answer to that question about if there's a student in the class. I've talked to other nurses in the state, and we don't have specific guidelines. I'm hoping we're going to have those in the next week. I know one option would be to have that student maybe sit 12 feet, or maybe we would notify parents. I don't have an answer for that yet.
Okay. I think that that's important for us and the community to know.
Caroline or Ryan, any thoughts on that?
Daryl, the only thing you and I had talked about was actually having that child, just like if you were to, in a different, like an exercise room or something like that, you would put people 12 feet apart or 14 feet apart. We had talked about that. It kind of depends on the situation. How many kids are we talking in one classroom? And so I think we're going to have to work and try to get some guidance on that as well.
Okay.
There is new guidance that has just come out between, I believe, DPH and DESE on the mask piece. I think it was just yesterday. So we'll certainly check that and make that clarification.
Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and this is only first reading, so we're not going to need to accept this tonight. We'll look forward. We'd love to have answers to some of those questions. And I guess I would ask,
I can,
yeah, is this policy or is this process?
I can respond to one issue with regard to the masks. The policy does particularly say that in the alternative, we can use face shields or physical barriers. That will be alternatives to people who cannot use a mask.
So a physical barrier would be like one of those plexiglass screens around a student desk or something.
Yep. Yes.
Are there other questions? Ms. Lynch?
Yes, I have one, similar to Mr. McDevitt's. What happens if in the middle of the class the kid pulls down the mask? Is the teacher supposed to stop class? If the child has to be removed, who takes the child? Like, how will that all be handled? Where does the child go? I think it says the principal's office maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, so if there's an issue in terms of dealing with it, like non-compliance or those types of things, the administration will have to handle. And also if it's a issue of illness, or some other component, every school has a medical isolation room, or a COVID room, that students will be taken to be evaluated. So.
But who's taking the students down, I guess, is my specific question.
Specifically to the nurse's office?
Or the medical isolation room, or for non-compliance, is the student going to the nurse's office for non-compliance?
Oh, for strictly non-compliance, they'd have to call the administration down to come down.
So the administration would come and get the child? Okay.
Any other questions at this point? I do have one question. I read this earlier today, and I don't remember reading and I don't remember hearing in this conversation if there would be exceptions for any adults who had medical conditions. If a teacher or a TA or a administrative assistant or anybody, an adult who had a medical reason not to wear a mask.
The policy does not address that issue.
Do we need a policy to address that issue?
I think that would be more relate to an issue as to whether that particular teacher could actually perform the duties of their position.
Okay, so that's a personnel matter.
Yes, I would say that.
Suzanne, I think that would be under the EEOC, and employers, what they're able to require employees to wear, and if they need accommodations under ADA or other components, we would work to make those accommodations.
Exactly.
Thank you, that's helpful to me. Okay, if there are no other questions about face coverings, we will move on to new business letter E, which is a first reading. Request to approve the revolving account. So that sounds like Dr. Mealy to me.
Yes, this was brought on by an unfortunate event. We had a recently retired phys ed teacher at the Sargent School, Miss Cotis, pass away. And not surprisingly, the Sargent community wanted to do something in her name and came up with the idea to provide donations to the school department to actually Sargent School that they could use to help students at Sargent participate in events that maybe they weren't going to be able to participate otherwise. And so we've been receiving donations, but we need an account to put them in. The donations have been generous, but they do not exceed the $1,000, so the donations themselves don't have to be approved, but the school committee needs to set up an account for these to go into.
So I will ask first if committee members have any questions or comments or discussion on this.
So my only question is, obviously you're receiving donations. Is there any problem with waiting for a second reading?
No, there wouldn't
Okay.
be.
All right.
And you said this would be to benefit students who attended Sargent School.
Right, and it would be at the discretion of the school administration and whoever else they want to involve in that conversation.
Any other discussion, comments, questions on that?
I just have a question as to why would it go to the school as opposed to the PTO? Just a process question, I don't know.
The two different entities. These donations are coming to the school. They
Okay.
may have done stuff to the PTO as well, but they have been donating to the
school.
North
Okay.
Andover School Department.
The only question I would have, this has to do with our naming policy. We can certainly receive donations in the name of this teacher, but I think the account name cannot be the teacher's name because we have a naming policy that says that if you want to name something, that it has to be a scholarship, I believe is what our naming policy says. So we can review that. It shouldn't stop us from making an account. We just want to just be a little bit careful about how we name the account.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that we name the account, so the wording is that this is on behalf of, is how I should have said it, but I wasn't suggesting we name it that.
Okay. All right, so we'll look forward to discussing that again at a future meeting. And we are on the agenda. New business F, which is report on COVID finances, which once again sounds like you, Dr. Mealy.
It is.
Do we cry now or later?
No, so all of these that you're going to see, and it's interesting because we've had the CARES Act we've had the CARES Act funding, and we actually just finished applying for a grant that we'll find out next week. That's $1 million, but all of this is funded through the different accounts that have been established for COVID-related expenses. And so this is not coming out of our operating budget yet, and we don't anticipate at this moment much coming out. And it's funny, as I was putting this together, I realized we never talked about how we closed out last year. Everything got caught up, and we were projecting a deficit of $150,000 because of some increases in out-of-district tuitions. But when all was said and done, we ended up $150,000 on the positive side. So I wanted to report that out.
Thank you.
So,
Well, opportunities in crisis. It seems to me that you must be projecting something, and on my meet, I cannot see what you're projecting, and I don't see it attached to the agenda. Is there a document that others are looking at?
There is.
I am projecting. I'm going to speak to it, and it's not a lot of detail. Basically,
Okay.
Between the end of last year, so funds that were available for FY20 and so far in FY21, and this indicates things that have been both spent and ordered, but not necessarily paid yet. And so technology, for instance, the Chromebook, when we do receive the next shipment, that'll be about $500,000 total in Chromebooks that we will have received. The move to 5G that Mike made is costing $47.7. The salaries, mostly the salaries come from the continuation of Ebca Murphy and food services working with the town to provide meals throughout March and all through the summer, and even now it's been extended through the end of September. So that's most of that. It also includes custodial overtime and special education services that have been provided. So that's $221,000. PPE includes all the items you would imagine: masks, sanitizer, gloves, gowns, face shields. And so far we've spent or ordered $275,000 in that item. COVID-related equipment, so kind of different from PPE. The electrostatic sprayers that we're going to use to disinfect are in there. The plastic barriers that we've talked about, so we will have some available for individual instances where they're needed, but we're also looking at where the public comes in and interacts with our staff, especially the administrative assistants. We're setting things up there. We've ordered some air purifiers for areas that might need that extra effort. Desks, because we had a lot of tables, especially at the elementary level, and we couldn't sit more than one student at a table, so we decided we'd get more space and allow for more social distancing with desks. So we ordered the desks. I italicized directional materials and tents. We're still working on the possibility of getting some tents, especially at the middle and high school. Some pretty large tents. We're working on that. And the directional materials are coming in. Joe was referring to those.
Like arrows in the floor?
During our visit. Those kind of things, exactly. And then the environmental engineer, and I think I misspoke. Mr. Teresi, I said $46,000. It's actually $47,380. So far, either spent or committed $1,060,000. The town, this doesn't include the town expenses, but the allocation was for $2.7 million, and then we have the additional grant that we anticipate getting, most communities I believe will get it, is $1,057,000 for North Andover.
And Jim, just to be clear, so, like on the Chromebooks here, you have 285,000, but that's what's been processed to date. Once the other order that's coming in, that then will increase that number on that line.
To a
How
half a
much?
million, you said. You said $500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I was listening.
I knew
Okay.
somebody was.
Questions from committee members? Ms. Mably?
Yes, so, Mr. Mealy, could you scroll down a little bit? So you do have on this list of PPE, you have masks, gloves, gowns, et cetera. There was a question we had during public comment. Are we, if teachers don't have their own, I know probably I would prefer to bring my own, but if teachers don't want that and they want it provided, are they allowed to take some of these masks, or are they only for kids?
Oh, they're for everybody.
That's what I thought.
We have,
Just
we
wanted to
have
clarify.
a lot, and they're available for everybody, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mably. Mr. Teresi, any questions?
Nope, none.
Okay, Mr. McDevitt?
Not at this time.
Ms. Lynch?
No questions.
Okay, and I don't either. Thank you very much, Jim, for that.
Sure.
So those are our agenda items as listed, and we generally have a go-around for folks to share whatever they may have seen or experienced in North Andover Public Schools since the last time we met, and I wonder if anybody has any sharing that they would like to do tonight. Hearing none, I would like to share with you all how much I appreciate the work that you are doing. Generally, we do not meet in the summer, and we've had hours and hours of meetings together. And I hear so often the culture of gratitude that you have for each other, the respect you have for each other, the assistance that you're giving me as I work us through these really tedious meetings, necessary and appropriate and helpful for us to move forward. But, there are other school committees that are tearing each other apart. So I really appreciate the raised values that we as a community have named, and I feel that we're really embracing with respect and achievement, inclusion, service, and empathy. So I want to thank everybody for that. Having said my piece, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
It's not a motion to adjourn, it's a motion to return to executive session.
Oh, see, thank you. So I would entertain a motion to return to executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Mably and seconded by Ms. Lynch. And we will have a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Teresi.
No.
Ms. Mably?
Yes.
Ms. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so it is 4-1, and the return to executive session passes.
And we will not.
We will not return to open session. Do I need to have a motion for that?
No.
No.
Okay, good. Thank you all very much. I will see you in executive session.
Thank you.
Thank you.